Have you ever felt like you're trying too hard in a relationship? You compromise, you're patient, you explain, only to receive coldness, manipulation, and endless arguments in return. You begin to doubt yourself. You wonder, am I doing something wrong? Maybe if I tried just a little harder, would they change? But here's a truth that no one wants to say to you outright. You're in a relationship with a narcissist, and the more you try, the more they control. In this video, I won't be telling you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth. And if you're ready to face it, you can reclaim your freedom. Starting right now with this video. Part 1. The first truth you must accept about a narcissist. Epictetus said, "We are not disturbed by events, but by our opinions about them." If you're facing a narcissist, perhaps the most painful part isn't their behavior at all. It's the vague, inner turmoil you feel, because you believe you're in a relationship founded on reciprocity, respect, and genuine care, where you give your best with the hope that it will be returned. You act with sincerity, keep your promises, and care about their feelings. Yet gradually you begin to sense that something is amiss. They do not respond as you expect. They never show gratitude, never apologize, and make no effort whatsoever to understand you. You start asking yourself, am I not doing enough? What should I change? Should I be more patient? And at that moment you fall into the first trap, because you're using the principles of a good person to explain the behavior of someone who simply does not play by those rules. A narcissist doesn't view a relationship the way you do. They don't seek genuine connection. They seek control. They aren't interested in understanding. They want to win. To them, there is no notion of working together, only of domination. In Stoic philosophy, there is an important principle. Don't expect the world to be fair. Expect yourself to be strong enough to face injustice. Marcus Aurelius once advised, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, today I will encounter selfish, arrogant, deceitful people. Not so that you become embittered, but so that you will be prepared, because once you see their true nature clearly, you won't be surprised when they do something despicable. And when you're no longer surprised, you won't be as easily hurt as before. A narcissist does not want to build anything together with you. What they want is power and attention, on their terms. If that means distorting the truth, they'll do it without hesitation. If they need to make you doubt your own worth, lose your self-confidence, and become malleable, they will pursue it relentlessly. And the sad truth is, they feel no guilt, no remorse, no introspection. To them it's just the way to exist, nothing more. I understand. You once had hope. You believed that if you were kind enough, patient enough, and clear enough in your communication, they would understand. But the reality is, a narcissist does not change through words. They are not swayed by logic, they do not learn from sincere emotion, and they are not moved by goodwill. The only thing to which they respond is consequences. The more you explain, the more you allow yourself to be manipulated. The softer you become, the more you lose your standing, and the more hope you cling to, the deeper your disappointment grows. At this very moment, you need to do what the Stoics call turning inward. You cannot control another's behavior, but you can completely control your own responses. This is where true strength begins. When you stop trying to change them and start changing yourself, you reclaim the power over your emotions, your thoughts, and your life. And that, my friend, is true freedom. Part 2. The tactics of manipulation and how the Stoic perceives the truth. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." But you won't find that spirit in a narcissist. They aren't in search of the truth, they are determined to maintain control. This is where many people go wrong. They try to explain themselves clearly, present evidence, send lengthy messages to prove that something happened. But you're up against an opponent who cares not about the truth at all, only about controlling how you perceive it. One of their strongest weapons is gaslighting, making you doubt your own memory and feelings. Did you say they insulted you yesterday? They'll claim you only imagined it. You remember clearly what they said. They'll completely deny it. They make you angry, then turn around and ask why you're too sensitive. At first you might resist, but gradually you begin to question. Am I really wrong? Am I overreacting? That is exactly when they begin to gain control over you. Stoics approach reality with one clear principle: judge by actions, not by words. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Don't speak, but demonstrate it with your actions." Narcissists do the exact opposite. They speak with sweet words, even apologize, swear, and promise to change, but their actions never reflect that. You don't need to be a psychologist to see this. Simply observe the recurring pattern: promises made and then broken, apologies followed by repeated offenses, expressions of regret only to shift the blame. Actions are the truth, and words? They're merely tools designed to keep you trapped under their control. Another tactic you must recognize is intermittent reinforcement, where they give you a bit of sweetness, then immediately turn cold, dismissive, or even cruel. This cycle repeats unpredictably, and it's designed to put your brain in a state akin to addiction, much like a slot machine. You rarely win, but each win provides such a powerful surge of dopamine that you can't leave. Narcissists are fully aware of this, and they exploit it on you. Every time you think about walking away, they throw a little goodness your way. A sincere apology, a warm smile, a kind word. And you linger until everything is back to the same old routine. You remain not because of happiness, but because you cling to the hope that next time will be different. But it never is. There's also another strategy: projection. They blame you for the very things they are doing. They call you dishonest, while they themselves fabricate tales. They accuse you of being unstable, while they are the ones causing chaos. What is their goal? To make you defensive, to force you to explain yourself, to engage in endless arguments. And while you are stuck in that position, they are the ones controlling the game. Narcissists don't get easily drawn into these emotional battles. They know that human nature isn't defined by words, but by consistent behavior over time. They don't chase illusions, don't fall for honeyed words, and most importantly, they don't seek the truth from those who aren't true to themselves. You might not be able to change a narcissist, but you can absolutely refuse to continue playing their games. And to do that, you must first recognize the tactics they use to control you. Naming these strategies is the first step in neutralizing them. Part 3. Breaking the illusion, reclaiming your power. Epictetus said, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well." One of the most dangerous illusions when you live with, work with, or love a narcissist is believing that if you're just good enough, patient enough, genuine enough, they will finally see your worth. That if you're kind enough, someday they'll wake up and acknowledge everything you've done for them. I understand why you think that way, because that's how a healthy, emotionally mature person sees the world. Give and take. Invest in someone emotionally, and it will be returned. But with a narcissist, as long as you're waiting for their recognition, they still have control over you. The Stoics never place their fate in someone else's hands. Epictetus taught that anything outside our control, including the thoughts, feelings, and validation of others, is not something we should stake our lives on. The only thing we can truly control is ourselves. Every time you change your behavior to avoid criticism, every time you stay silent just to keep the peace, every time you hope that a small compliment will arrive like a reward, you're handing over another piece of your personal power. The more you try to please them, the more powerful they feel. They don't see your patience as noble. They see it as a weakness. They don't interpret your effort to repair things as proof of love. They see it as proof that you haven't found the strength to leave. And so, every time you ask yourself, "Have I done enough?" or "Maybe this time they'll see it," you trap yourself deeper into a cycle with no exit. Let me be clear, there is no magic formula that will make a narcissist recognize your value. Because the problem was never you. The problem is in their operating system. They can't, and don't want to, truly recognize the worth of others. To do so would threaten their sense of superiority. If they allow you to shine, they feel dimmed. A narcissist needs you to doubt yourself. They need you to feel like you're falling short. They need you to keep trying to do better, because that's how they maintain the balance of power. But you are no longer a victim once you see this clearly. Their lack of respect isn't because you lack value. It's because respect requires a level of maturity they don't possess. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Your freedom begins not when the narcissist changes, but when you stop waiting for their approval and start approving of yourself. And the moment you stop playing by their rules, when you no longer need praise, no longer seek their validation, no longer wait for their apology, you begin reclaiming what they tried to take. Your emotional sovereignty, your dignity, your self-respect. Freedom doesn't begin when the narcissist changes. It begins when you change your expectation. Part 4. Stop justifying. End the game. Seneca said, "Silence is a lesson learnt from the many sufferings of life." How many times have you told yourself, "I just need to explain more clearly. This time they'll understand. I must lay out my case"? How many times have you typed hundreds of words in messages only to receive cold silence, ridicule, or indifference in return? How many times have you fallen into the same old script? You speak out to defend yourself, they twist your words, you end up on the defensive, and eventually you're left feeling at fault. This isn't a debate, it's a psychological game designed for you to always lose. You see, narcissists don't argue to understand, they argue to dominate. Every time you justify yourself, you're affirming that their opinion holds value. Every time you try to clarify a misunderstanding, you inadvertently position them as the arbiter of your worth. In doing so, you end up playing by their rules. In Stoic philosophy, there is a simple yet powerful principle. No one has the right to hurt you, unless you allow it. Your emotions do not lie in their hands. They reside in how you interpret their actions. Epictetus once taught, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, if you seek growth, be willing to let others misjudge you and still remain silent. Narcissists manipulate you by making you believe that you need to reshape your image in their eyes. But you don't have to do that. The truth requires no excuses, and true value needs no demonstration to someone unwilling to see it. Refusing to justify yourself isn't a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it is a display of inner strength and clarity. When you say, "I don't need to explain further," you withdraw from their most insidious trap, the endless debate. You stop pouring energy into a battle with no referee, no rules, and no end in sight. And if they twist the truth, let them. If they create their own narrative, distort your words, let them talk. What matters isn't winning an argument, but preserving your inner peace. A true Stoic doesn't seek to triumph over others. They seek only to avoid being dragged down into the mire. The less you react, the less power they hold. The quieter you remain, the more you strip away the very energy they live off. The control of your emotions, and then, gradually, they will tire, for you are no longer supplying them with the energy they crave. And when they grow bored, you are free. Part 5. The Power of Silence and the Art of the Grey Rock. Seneca said, "To bear trials with a calm mind robs misfortune of its strength and burden." Narcissists cannot sustain their own emotions. They lack internal stability. They don't know how to create a sense of self-worth on their own, so they need that from others. Specifically, they need it from you. They need you to become angry. They need you to be hurt. They need you to flare up, to cry, to suffer, because all those emotions tell them that they still wield influence. And that is precisely why the grey rock method is so powerful. Being a grey rock doesn't mean being cold, malicious, or hateful. It simply means providing no emotional reaction, no arguing, no futile attempts to explain yourself to them, no giving any cues that they can exploit to continue their attacks. Just like a rock, uninteresting, undialogued, and unresponsive. Imagine you're talking with someone whose sole purpose is to see you lose your cool in order to prove that you are crazy, too sensitive, or unstable. But you don't react. You answer briefly and neutrally. No sarcasm, no explanations, no displays of emotion. A person like that has nothing left to exploit from you. And when there is no fuel for their manipulation, they will eventually withdraw. But let's be honest, this is not easy. It is not easy to sit before someone who was once close to you, watching them distort the truth, blame you, and yet maintain a calm demeanor. It is not easy to be falsely accused without defending yourself. It is not easy to remain silent while your inner self screams. However, this is exactly when you cultivate emotional discipline, one of the core virtues of Stoic philosophy. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. You cannot control what others think, say, or do, but you can control your own reactions." And that makes all the difference. Remember, narcissists live by emotional interaction, whether positive or negative. If you show them love, they will exploit it. If you express hate toward them, they still feel empowered. But if you remain indifferent to their tactics, they have nothing left to latch onto. And then, gradually, you will find that you are no longer dragged into those turbulent emotional cycles. No more sleepless nights over meaningless arguments. No more mornings waking with a vague sense of guilt. You will begin to breathe freely, not because they have changed, but because you have ceased giving them the power to control you. Part 6. Breaking the cycle of conflict, no longer the prey. Marcus Aurelius said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Narcissists possess a terrifying skill. They manufacture conflict in spaces that should be peaceful. They can turn an ordinary conversation into a battlefield. Even an innocuous question can be twisted into an attack. They amplify, distort, and redirect. So long as you continue to react, you mention something they did wrong, they won't admit it. Instead, they'll bring up something you did 6 months ago. They steer the conversation to your mistakes, forcing you to defend and justify yourself. And within minutes, you forget the original topic, because now you're busy proving that you aren't as bad as they claim. This is the conflict trap. It isn't about seeking the truth. It's about keeping you locked into their emotional game. The Stoics don't get dragged into such games. They understand one thing clearly. Arguing with someone who isn't interested in the truth is a futile endeavor. Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows, and a narcissist always believes they are right, regardless of the evidence." So, the question is no longer, how can I make them understand me? The real question is, am I wasting my energy on a battle that cannot be won? You don't need to beat them. You simply need to stop playing their game. The only way to break the cycle of conflict is to refuse to participate. No more justifications. No explanations. Do not get drawn into every accusation. This does not mean you accept their distortions. It means you choose to preserve your own composure and dignity. Set your boundaries, and once set, stand by them. If you say, "I'm not going to engage in this kind of conversation anymore," then keep your word. They will provoke, push you to the limits, and seek out any crack in your resolve. But if you yield, they will know you're still easy to control. Narcissists do not build resilience with promises. They require consistent action. A boundary only has value when it is enforced with discipline. Yes, there will be difficult moments. They will blame you. They will fabricate stories. They might even make you look bad in the eyes of others. But remember, true honor is not determined by what others say. It is measured by how you live your life. You are no longer the prey. You are the one in control. And by refusing to engage in conflict, you are unfastening the chains they have long used to bind you. Part 7. Setting boundaries and bearing the price of freedom. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Everyone says you have to set boundaries, yet few speak the truth. Setting boundaries with a narcissist is a battle. You're not merely drawing lines, you're challenging the entire system of control they've built upon you. And do you really think they'll accept that? Absolutely not. When you start setting boundaries, they will test you. They will press your buttons, tug at your strings, pull sharply, to see if you're truly serious or just making empty threats. They'll ask, "Oh, so you think you're better than everyone?" Or, "Why are you suddenly sulking? What's wrong?" And even, "You always overreact." All aimed at one objective, to make you doubt yourself. This is where many people buckle. For boundaries come with a price. The price of temporary loneliness, of feeling guilty, of being misunderstood. But if you're not willing to pay that price, you'll forever remain under someone else's control. Stoics understand this clearly. They do not pursue comfort. They cultivate the ability to endure discomfort, knowing that freedom never comes free. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You must build up your life action by action and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as it can." Each action you take, every limit you set, is a brick in the edifice of your life. It doesn't have to be perfect, only consistent. Boundaries are not mere declarations. They are commitments in action. If you say, "I will no longer tolerate humiliation," then when it occurs, you must walk away. If you say, "I'm not going to engage in this kind of debate anymore," then when they provoke you, you must remain silent and stand your ground. And yes, they will react more fiercely than ever. There may be feigned tears, there may be threats, there may be extinction bursts, one final outburst when they realize their old tricks no longer work. But you must understand, that is a sign that you're doing it right. A narcissist does not attack while they still hold sway over you. They attack when they begin to lose you. And at that moment you must choose. Will you fall back into the old cycle to keep some temporary peace? Or will you stand firm in the discomfort to win long-lasting freedom? The Stoic chooses the latter, not because they do not feel pain, but because they know the temporary pain of upholding your boundaries is infinitely lighter than the torment of living without self-respect. You don't set boundaries to change the narcissist. You set boundaries to protect yourself from becoming a distorted version of who you truly are. And with every time you stand firm, you are reinforcing the most important thing in life, your autonomy. Part 8. Letting go of the need for closure and finding liberation within. Seneca said, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." Perhaps you've sat alone in silence after an exhausting argument thinking, if only they'd apologize, if only they'd admit they were wrong, then maybe I could finally let go. We've all held that hope. Deep down, every person naturally craves closure, a complete ending, an explanation, an acknowledgement, an apology, a clear resolution. It's like closing a door so you no longer have to look back. But when it comes to a narcissist, you must understand this. The ending you long for will never come. They will not wake up one fine morning and realize, "I've treated you badly." They won't suddenly send you a remorseful, lengthy message explaining everything you ever questioned. They won't lower themselves to admit fault, not because they don't know they're wrong, but because they cannot accept anything that might wound their fragile ego. For them, admitting a mistake equates to a loss of power, and power is the only thing they truly care about. They'd rather distort the truth or paint you as the villain than face the uncomfortable feeling of not being perfect. And if you keep waiting for that moment, waiting for them to wake up and acknowledge their wrongdoing, not only are you waiting in vain, you are also maintaining your bond with the very person who hurt you. You'll continue to replay old conversations in your mind, writing and deleting hundreds of unsent messages, reconstructing scenarios, wishing you'd said something different. You stop living in the present. You become trapped in an unchangeable past. What would a true Stoic say in such a case? They would remind you that closure isn't something someone else gives you, it's a gift you grant yourself. Epictetus taught, freedom begins the moment you stop needing validation from others. True freedom starts the moment you no longer require someone else's approval. So, stop waiting for them to admit fault. Stop waiting for them to make things right. That sense of justice, you must create it within yourself. And you do that by embracing one simple yet powerful truth. They don't need to understand you for you to be at peace. They don't need to apologize for you to heal. They don't need to come back for you to move on. True closure isn't found in what they say. It lies in the decision you make to stop waiting for another second. I choose to let go. I choose to live on, not for them, but because I am worthy. And then, gradually, you will find that the anger, the doubts, the yearning for justice will slowly give way to something else. Relief. Not because what they did was right, but because you refuse to let it continue defining who you are. Narcissists do not seek healing through those who hurt them. They look for it in the strength of their own inner being, something no one else can touch but themselves. Part 9. The final act. Freedom through decisiveness. Epictetus said, "A wise man does not waste his time trying to convince others of the truth. He simply lives it." You have seen the truth. You have realized that you don't need an apology, that you don't need them to understand, that you don't need them to come back. Now is the time to stop waiting, to stop overanalyzing, to end the hesitation. Now is the time to act. You may have spent years trapped in a relationship with a narcissist, wasting your time, energy, emotions, and even yourself. But the wonderful thing is, you don't need another day of it. The moment you decide, everything can change. And this action doesn't require drama. You don't need to shout. You don't need to make bold proclamations. You don't need to teach them a lesson. You just need to decisively withdraw from the game. A message left unanswered, a call not returned, a debate you choose not to join, a moment when you stand up and walk away without further explanation. The narcissist will react. They will do everything possible to pull you back, feigning remorse, perhaps even becoming unusually sweet. But do not forget, they will never change. They only change their tactics. In Stoic philosophy, action needs no applause, no audience. The right action is its own reward. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." And the right action at this moment is to let go. Let go to reclaim yourself. Let go to end the exhausting cycle. Let go to make room for true peace. You don't need to defeat the narcissist. You only need to refuse to be defined by them. When you stop reacting, when you cease clinging, that is when they cease to exist in your inner world. And here's the strange part. You won't feel ecstatic. You won't feel the rush you might have imagined. You will simply feel light. So light that you'll be surprised at how long you carried that burden. You look back and see clearly, the only person you ever needed to convince, to prove yourself to reconcile with, was you. Then you begin to live again. Not needing to be seen, not needing to be understood, not needing to be accepted. You are enough. They no longer have power over you. You are no longer the prey. Your life, from this moment forward, is yours. You don't need them to change. You don't need an apology. You don't need closure from someone who will never give it to you. All you need is one decision. Freedom is your choice. No stage, no validation, no audience required. You don't need to win in their eyes, just win over yourself. A Stoic doesn't fight for revenge. They simply clear the path and move forward, unhesitatingly. If you're hearing this and feel as if I'm speaking the words of your heart, then it is no coincidence. You know the truth, and now is the time to live by that truth. Stop playing a game that is no longer worth your while. Reclaim the life you once forgot you deserved. And if you need to hear this one more time, you are not weak. You have been strong for far too long. Now is the time to be strong in a different way, by letting go. If this video touches you somewhere deep, leave a comment. No lengthy explanations are needed. Just write, "I choose freedom," because that is the first step toward reclaiming yourself. I look forward to walking with you on a journey of living powerfully, yet gently.